Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from lastcar.info, and welcome to Behind the Wall, the post-race show that comes on after the race. We're unofficially pending the results of post-race inspection for the second time in his very early Cup Series career. Corey Heim has pulled off the Cup Series win. Absolutely tremendous accomplishment for him, first and foremost. And wouldn't you know it, with the timing of this, drove the number 67 car at the San Diego Naval Base Coronado event that we covered there just last month, and pulls off the first victory there for the number 67, the number made famous by the late Buddy Arrington, who drove that number from the beginning of his career through the mid-1980s, a number that's been very rarely run since then and has never made it to victory lane. He gets the first win with that number, and now in this event, and this today, just happens to be Buddy Arrington's birthday. Corey comes back out there in the 67 car again, not his first start since San Diego, but one of them, and pulls off an even bigger victory in the Brickyard 400 in this one too. So a tremendous, tremendous accomplishment for this driver. I think we should all be very excited to see what he puts together next season in the Cup Series, if he's already capable of pulling off these couple of wins in a part-time effort. And then next year driving the number 35 car. And as he said back at San Diego, already looking ahead to being the first driver to win in that car number as well, is going to be another big thing to tick off the list there. So first and foremost, I am floored that he pulled off this win. He looked very impressive there in the middle stages, seemed to have just the right strategy when the cautions played out, and was up front or in the top five for pretty much the rest of the race from that point there, but did have a very aggressive restart from Denny Hamlin, trying to get back around him there towards the end of the race there, and that ended up being decisive. Hamlin dropped back to about the fourth or fifth spot there and couldn't really get back up there, and that's the other part of the story there for sure. Passing was pretty much impossible in this race here, unless it was happening on pit road or in the very first instant after a restart. And we had a couple of incidents in this race between Kyle Larson's accident and Daniel Dye's accident that gave us a couple other restarts and some other opportunities for drivers to make their way up there. But regardless, it was a very, very difficult race for anybody to pass. Even when you had Christopher Bell right behind Corey Heim, and also Joey Logano with a massive rally that he had from very far back, pretty much on his own. To get back up there and challenge for third and get within 0.8 of a second of the leader, but just not be able to work their way by. Now, undoubtedly, here in Indianapolis, they still have the same package that they've run more or less, the other tracks here. Does not have the high horsepower package, that being capped off at tracks that are, less than 1.5 miles in length. Clearly, that needs to change. Indianapolis is not really known for having the most lead changes out there, and when you had a driver that usually figures things out, it's going to be very difficult for that driver to be beaten out there, and that's going to be very much the same case this time around. But yeah, it seemed like it was very, very difficult, especially once people got strung out there. A single groove track just really couldn't find their way around the traffic there. So, I could see people's frustrations. There's a lot of anger and frustration I sense from this week in general, between the discussion about the length of races as well. We'll talk about that tonight. The broadcast quality of the Truck Series race the other night. There's a lot to cover there on that, and we'll try to address that as much at the same section here too. But yeah, just a little bit of everything. It's unfortunate to add conditions to this here because, yeah, again, it's a massive victory for Corey Heim. Undoubtedly, he's going to be very strong in his full-time effort there and whatever remaining starts he has this year. But I got to say, I mean, in terms of the overall complexion of this race, in general, it wasn't really the best Brickyard, for sure. It was definitely one where it was very, very difficult to pass. The cautions are just completely out of control. Even with NASCAR taking the step of these last couple of weeks and trying to shorten up cautions, it felt, and it's always a challenge for me because, whenever you have last place finisher falling out in the first stage, I'm usually started getting a head start on the article there during the race, but it felt like even in the background, it felt like it was mostly caution laps the whole time. And I know it's a very big track, and I know the laps take a very long time under green, never mind under a caution. But it seemed really absurd this time around here. And I know that, that's not going to be helped if they run the road course again. I'm not saying they should do that. But certainly the stage cautions are just absurd. We had two wrecks in this race that were like right before the stage ends. He had a 1 lap restart and then more cautions there. And this kind of leads into what I was going to discuss later, but we may as well bring it up here. The message from Scott Dixon earlier this week about, having a good nap there during some NASCAR races. Jeff Gluck talking about the races needing to be shorter and the response to that. The elephant in the room that isn't there all the time, and I don't understand why this is those stage cautions. Why on earth do we have to have them? And it's basically the same element that we have had from the chase and every other regrouping and every other restart minded element that's in this sport. We don't need to have them. If we just had this race run green for a longer period of time, who knows? Maybe the tire wear would have been different. Certainly the fuel strategy would have been different. We don't need to have some of the strategy spelled out for these teams by having predetermined cautions out there. It's the same reason that Carl Edwards was against it right from the start, and other drivers being very skeptical of it right from the beginning. So, again, it needs to be something that gets reevaluated there, and I think that would improve the racing at all. At a lot of the tracks in Indianapolis, among them there as well. If you had a race here, we did have a couple of natural cautions there at the same time. But again, the fact that they once again corresponded kind of with these stage cautions, it just made it a very challenging watch there. And then, having a really good battle with drivers kind of trying to get back up there. Again, Joey Logano and Christopher Bell did a tremendous job getting up there, but then they just couldn't really do anything. And they were waiting for Heim to make a little bit of a slip, and the broadcast was trying to gin this up, saying, "Oh, 67's out of control. 67's out of control. He's slipping up all over the place." It's like, no, he had that thing locked in there, and he was driving it just expertly around there. I'm sure it was a handful for him behind the wheel, but I wasn't seeing any major deviations out of that car there at the end. He was very much locked in and hanging on there. So, if there was anything catastrophic there for him, it was going to be, a very different outcome. But, again, I think that, that part needs to be really looked at. I think that if you didn't have the stage cautions and if you had that, just let the field sort itself out normally, you could still have the stage points if you want to assign those and everything. That's fine. That would have really helped. Would it have made it a perfect race? No, because there's still problems with the car itself. And you're not going to be able to address, the same issue with the passing. Certainly high horsepower would be a good element, getting as much of that aerodynamics off there. We're still feeling the after effects of when we had this race back in 2015, 2016, where you had all the different aerodynamics on it, and nobody could pass back then either. But we got to get back to something where, if somebody claws their way up there and is trying to get back around the leader, that they can actually set up some passes. Carson Hocevar being outspoken about this in qualifying after he won the pole, saying that, paraphrasing it here, that, feeling that it's so difficult to pass in the next gen car, that hopefully that was a positive sign for his race, as it turned out there with him starting up front. That definitely needs to be worked out there. And again, this is probably one of those races that, it's going to be more obvious than others. In that sense, it's unfortunate because I think Pocono was a little bit better this year than it was last year. And I'm still hopeful that places like Iowa, they're going to have the high horsepower package, are going to be better than they were last year. But this one, competition wise, it was not, it was not the most competitive one out there. And that's unfortunate. Again, there were some exceptions. Again, I appreciate, I like that there was that really aggressive restart there with Denny Hamlin. I think that was probably one of the most exciting parts of the race there. It could have very easily turned out badly for the both of them. Reminiscent of the battle for the lead in the All-Star race in 1992. You got drivers running well outside of what the groove is, running right to the bottom there. I thought Denny Hamlin for sure was going to lose control there on the inside with his couple of, stabbing movements that he made there to try to get around the 67. But tremendous car control. Even though he lost the spots and he lost the race ultimately, it was not for lack of effort there at the same time. And that's the unfortunate part. You got these drivers that are able to kind of bunch the field up there. That they're doing the best they can. But yeah, if there's restrictions on it that's preventing them from actually contending for the lead, that's definitely something that's still a work in progress and needs to get figured out there too. But again, not to make it sound like it was easy for Corey Heim, because it certainly wasn't. It didn't look that way for him either. But I thought he just drove it expertly out there, led 58 laps of the race. Did a tremendous job out there. So Corey Heim, your winner, Christopher Bell in second, Joey Logano in third, Chase Briscoe in fourth, and Denny Hamlin in the fifth position there. Rest of your top 10, Brad Keselowski, a good day for the RFK Racing Group there, with them finishing all in the top 11 spots here, with Josh Berry in the 7th spot, Ryan Preece in 8th, Carson Hocevar in 9th, and running out your top 10 would be Tyler Reddick there as well. So again, good efforts there for the 2311 group here as well. Looking further back there, Ty Gibbs looked very strong, got skunked by a caution there after winning a stage there early in the event. Again, he was one driver I was kind of thinking of picking for this weekend there, figured that he was going to be really tough out there, but unfortunately gets shaken out to the 12th spot there at the finish. Good effort by Cole Custer. I noticed he was on the same strategy that Heim had in the early stages there, and actually looked pretty good there, actually being able to be in and around the top 10, ends up with the 13th place finish there for the effort there at the same time. Zane Smith in 15th. Shane Van Gisbergen, after repositioning his steering wheel, a little bit of a bizarre incident. I don't get why TNT had access to the audio and we're just saying like, gee, if only we had the audio of what Shane Van Gisbergen was saying at that point, that would be funny to listen to. And it's like, well, you have it. You can listen to it from here. Turned out it really wasn't that much that was said on the radio when I queued it back myself on the HBO Max deal. Although the team was wondering at the time, they didn't really understand that he was repositioning the steering wheel. They thought he was reaching for his water bottle or a gel packet or something else in the cockpit there. So I guess they weren't cued in until the broadcast was showing that at the same time. Noah Gragson, very frustrated out there on the radio. The video clip, I believe Eric Estep was posting earlier, showed a very aggressive move running in the back of Connor Zilich's car at one point there. And again, I don't know how symbolic that is of everybody else in the field. And again, how difficult it was to pass, how difficult it was to have the right strategy and, try to position yourself as best you could. But again, definitely a challenging afternoon for him, but still got a 22nd place finish, which actually for that team is probably one of the best runs that they've had this year. At the same time, I can't speak to what else is going on there at the same time, but we'll find out what the story is there too. Bubba Wallace looked good. Had some damage in practice. Had a bad pit stop though. At the same time, it dropped him back. Couldn't recover from that. I mean, basically at that point there, back in the 28th spot there, the checkered flag, that being the end of his run there as well. But all this again, taken to the side here of the last place finisher, Kyle Larson ends up being your last place finisher of today's Brickyard 400. The first time that Hendrick Motorsports has finished last in the Brickyard 400 or at the Indy Road Course for that matter. And the first time the number 5 has finished last in this event. So of course you think back to Hendrick's history at this event. Of course, Jeff Gordon winning the inaugural, winning the multiple times after that, Jimmy Johnson, Casey Kane, really all their organizations being very strong out here at the same time. Again, a difficult day for them. Chase Elliott as well with some damage to the right rear suspension after a tangle with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Ends up spinning about 40 laps in the garage area. Did get back on the track for the third stage, but only climbed past one car and Daniel Dye there before the checkered flag. Came up just short of catching the other drivers that were involved in the incident with Ryan Blaney there. Connor Zilich, Casey Mears, and Riley Herbst eliminated in the closing stages, and Austin Hill with some damage that he suffered in that incident as well. Dropping back in the order, you got Hill in the 33rd spot, Zilich, Mears, and Herbst from 34th on back. And this shows very much that, again, the challenge of passing at this track was very much the same issue at the back of the field. Turbulent air was a massive issue for Casey Mears over the radio. Basically, the beginning of this race, you had Daniel Dye qualifying in the back of the field. He gets around Casey Mears, who slipped up the track off turn 2. And then pretty much for the entire remainder of stage 1, Mears is just trying to track down Daniel Dye, and they're running, nose to tail, and they start losing touch of the pack, and it's basically the two of them by themselves. And every time Mears got up to him, he closed in with it about 1 or 2 tenths of a second, and then his car would just push, and it would just get really, really tight, and he dropped back to about a half a second. And it was just basically the same thing. And I guess if you multiply that by the rest of the field, or even somebody trying to challenge for the lead, that was what they were dealing with. Again, I'm no aerodynamic expert out there or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely not all sunshine and roses in this race for sure. It's definitely something that they need to be addressing. And it's not the first time we've seen this. Seeing references to the Kansas race there between Harvick and Logano years ago, where Harvick just could not get around Logano, even though he caught him, got up to him there, had plenty of time to make a move, and he just couldn't do it. I mean, it was very similar there from one end of the field to the other. And, you can't blame drivers for capitalizing on the few opportunities they have to actually kind of get up there. But is that the kind of racing that you want to see at a track like this, especially if you're trying to make this a crown jewel? And I know there's been a lot of debate about it. Adam Alexander was pretty conclusory about that in the broadcast here, but I think there's been plenty of debate about that this entire week. Kyle Petty being among those outspoken on the subject of what the big if it fits in that element. And then, of course, on top of this, you got the same issue with people being upset about Carson Kvapil doing the burnout over the bricks the other day. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. And it's always frustrating when you have a race like this that should be a celebration of, the racetrack and its history, and NASCAR developing its own kind of element of that history. Not to say that NASCAR is the only invader to the track. Of course, since then we've had Formula One and other divisions, competing out here. But at the same time, it seems like we haven't fully escaped the tensions of the initial announcement and the Tony George era, and NASCAR still feeling like invaders at this track, not feeling entirely welcome there at the same time. And that's rather eye-opening given, how many decades later it's been, how we now live in a time where, you have the track itself, its infield road course, and, other series competing there. It's not like we live in a time where it's just the Indy 500 and that's the only time it's been used, although that was the case for so much of Indy's history. It's disappointing when you have something where, the racing is maybe not the best out there, and then you have something else with this whole brick deal there. It's frustrating because, then it makes you wonder. So many different things had to happen to kind of get this race back to the oval to begin with. Now we're in the same position of, kind of having to prove ourselves all over again. It kind of feels like, so that's kind of a different deal. But, clearly, we're not back to where the race used to be in terms of prominence, whether or not it was a crown jewel in that time period. Certainly it's an event that, drivers were, very big on winning, and it extended to an extent to the road course there as well. When you had guys like AJ Allmendinger, pulling off the win there at the same time. It is unfortunate because, I get there's still that little bit of hostility there between, the IndyCar ranks and the NASCAR ranks there. And, and I think we got a taste of that this entire week with the Scott Dixon deal. And now all of this there too. It's unfortunate because I think, both series kind of have their strong points and everything. And at the same time, am I wringing my hands too much about that? I mean, I'm not really losing sleep over it, because at the end of the day, these drivers are competitors. And I think that competition extends, between racing divisions, and, they're out there. There's only so much attention out in the world. That's always the way I kind of look at it. There's only so much attention, from everybody these days, with so many options for entertainment and, how people spend their time and everything, not to mention how they spend their money. It's, so I don't expect everybody to be getting along, hand in hand the whole time, and yeah, I mean, if there's a little bit of trash talking back and forth and, it gets people riled up and like, oh, well, hey, maybe you're going to have, Cup guys attempting IndyCar races or IndyCar and Cup. And especially when you have combination weekends there as well, like we had this year at St. Petersburg or at Phoenix. I think if you have that little bit of competitive spark there at the same time, yeah, I don't see anything, wrong with that. And I'm certainly not going to be, gatekeeping about criticizing NASCAR. I mean, Scott Dixon's not wrong about that. About maybe some of the more tedious aspects of the sport. And although he didn't specifically mention it, I think it kind of goes back to what, I was talking about earlier there about the stage cautions out there. If you think back to St. Petersburg and when we had that companion weekend out there with the Truck Series and the IndyCar Series, I remember very clearly that there were people talking with fans in the stands that were new to this, said that they really enjoyed the Truck Series, they really enjoyed the truck race, but they couldn't figure out why the cautions were taking so long. They didn't understand the stage caution thing. They didn't understand, especially in the Truck Series where the races themselves are so short, that the point of stages is it's kind of irrelevant. You don't really have a long enough run to figure out, what handling adjustments to make on your truck in that case. So again, it just seems like we get back to this common denominator of the stage cautions, and yet we're talking about, it's like, okay, the stage cautions are taking a long time, and they're confusing the fans, they're irritating people, and they're boring Scott Dixon. Let's talk about shortening the races. And it's like, what? How do you get to that point? That's the absurdity of a lot of this. Let's at least start looking at this. And I appreciate that the discussion has gone that direction. I appreciate that people have been so outspoken about the length of the Cup races. I mean, certainly in comparison to the O'Reilly and the truck races, they got to be longer than those. What? I mean, we're going to short the Cup races and the O'Reilly and the truck races. How about we shorten all the races? Let's do the typical Twitter argument here. Oh, well, let's just shorten all the races to one lap, and then that'll be the most exciting thing. See? I mean, it just kind of goes back to that again. It's like, no. If you have good racing out there, if you have drivers that people care about, if you have a broadcast that's engaging enough, the race can go for 1,000 laps. It can go for 3 days straight if it wanted to. That's the compelling part of it here. It doesn't really matter, at that point there. So that's where the focus needs to be. It needs to be on all those little elements that make it better. You don't need to change the things that have worked in the past, and I get that the concept of a 500-mile race or a 600-mile race or something like that is maybe perceived differently today than in the past. But, when you got a race that takes 3 hours and 15 minutes and people are still watching football games religiously that long, college football or the NFL or, any other sports out there. And I don't like comparing stick and ball sports, but when we have this discussion, it's going to have to come up there if we're talking about not so much this sport needing to be like stick and ball sports, but just in terms of entertainment where people are going to sit in a seat for multiple hours. I mean, these days we got movies that it's so rare to have a movie that's an hour and a half. Every movie these days is 2.5 hours. It used to be back when I was a kid. It used to be, you only had like an epic movie, like a literal epic movie would be like 3 hours long or something like that. Nowadays, these superhero movies are 2.5, 3 hours long. So you're telling me people can't sit through a race? If you make the race entertaining and you make it engaging, they'll sit through it, and that's the way it's going to be. So again, it's absurd to go down that angle. And I hate it for Gluck that he's getting a lot of this flack, there. I know that Junior was responding to that, and everything too, but that's part of it, and even in Gluck's post that he made, to be perfectly fair, he did bring up cautions and talking about the caution periods needing to be reduced as well. So, the issue, I think, at that point there was, like what's best for the show. It's like, it's not a sense of everybody wanting to, to leave, they want this race to be over earlier so they can leave earlier, or media people like that or something like that too. I agree. It shouldn't, it's not a case of that. But yeah, I mean, I don't think that that's something that's going to be making the show better. It's absurd. Again, you got to look at other elements that aren't interesting. The best part of a race is what happens under green, and getting it back to that point and accentuating that each week is what's going to keep people involved. And that's really the important element of it there. So we have to strip away things that are unnecessary in that sense. And the stage cautions are the most logical part. I know I'm hammering that a lot, but it needs to be hammered. And I think that's the other part of it. So, I hate it for Gluck for getting a lot of flack from that, because he's not the only one that's been pitching that element there. But, unfortunately, social media does what it does sometimes. And, that's another part of it there. But, yeah. And again, I don't agree with everything he says, just like I don't believe everybody agrees with what I'm saying here on this show. So it comes with the territory. But that's just part of it there. But, yeah, again, I think a more, further discussion of that needs to be looked at. And I feel like the sport is kind of turning the corner that way, honestly, with the other announcement this past week where NASCAR has kind of apparently just kind of thrown out the concept of the regular season champion. And to that, I say good riddance. Wonderful. Maybe we're even closer to having a full season champion than I thought we were. If we're not doing the whole thing with like a trophy and giving a championship trophy to somebody that was only good for 2/3 of the season and ignoring the rest of the year and saying, okay, we only have one trophy in this sport and we give it at the end of the season. Wonderful. Bravo. I think that's exactly where we need to be going. And I think that's a proper, direction. So hopefully we're heading that direction there too. So I think that's the other, that's another part of it. But, hopefully that gets, something worked out there in the meantime. But anyway, jumped around a bit more than I wanted to on that one. We'll talk about the Truck Series and the O'Reilly Series races here as well. Okay, I got looking at my notes here on this at the same time. Yeah, there we go. The note about St. Petersburg. I had that on here. Looking further back at the same time. Yeah. So I touched on the whole brick issue. This is the other thing. I mean, God, this is, I need to have this segment, the People Are Mad segment that I've been thinking about doing here for the show. This pretty much be the entire show here today. We got people mad about the full races. Got people mad about doing burnouts on the bricks. The burnout on the brick thing, I'm of two minds on it, and I don't want to straddle the fence on it there, but I feel like I don't have all the information in front of me on this. Now, undoubtedly, if there was ever a real issue of, protecting the bricks there on the racetrack, there would be an issue of just, having them there on the track at all. You got the whole field's going to be running over them there. But I know that doing a burnout is separate from, the cars just racing over the track, of course, especially if they're going to start lighting up the tires and skidding over them and all that stuff there too. I'd be interested to know, and perhaps the people at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway it would be great to see them provide more context to this, of the challenge of preserving those bricks, especially, they got ones that are engraved about past winners and things like that. Yeah, you don't want to lose a little detail to those. I understand from a historical standpoint that you don't want to have that. At the same time, Indianapolis is a living historical monument. It's a track that's going to be hosting races and all that. But then on the other side of it there, I'm not a big burnout fan, honestly, in general. I'm totally fine with just drivers just kind of going around the track, doing a Polish victory lap like Carson Kvapil did eventually do during Saturday's race. Stopping in front of the starting stand and climbing the fence or anything, else like that. Drivers get excited for any number of things. This is all something, especially, Kevin Harvick and Ron Hornaday and drivers like that kind of started this in more recent years, or at least feels recent to me, 20, 30 years ago. But again, I'm not really, I don't wring my hands too much about, drivers doing burnouts or not doing burnouts. Like, oh, they should be doing this, they should be doing that. Honestly, what comes back to mind to me is one of Ty Majeski's first wins in the Truck Series coming at Bristol, and him doing a Polish victory lap, and then fans being, upset at him not doing a burnout. Even though, of course, he was from the Alan Kulwicki development program. Kulwicki, of course, losing his life tragically before the race at Bristol, where he was the defending winner back in 1993. And the significance of him doing that, Polish victory lap was should have been understood better, but neither the broadcast nor the crowd seemed really willing to embrace that. And I know that the sport's changed in that sense, where now burnouts are completely expected. I know we used to have a burnout competition, whether it's the segment they did back in Nashville, or they used to have something during the All-Star weekend where they had burnout competitions there. It's fun. I don't like complaining about it too much, because I don't want to sound like somebody's like, oh, these guys are having fun. What you hate people having fun. I don't want to go down that road there on it. And I don't like putting rules in places for celebrations either, because I don't like it. I didn't like it back in the 2000s where they put that little pipe thing on the side of the car that keep drivers from climbing on the roof. That was stupid too. So, again, this is why it's tricky. See, this is where I'm having trouble attacking it in the right angle there. I don't feel personally like it's too big of an ask to tell these drivers to not burn out on the bricks, whether they can detect at the moment where they are in proximity to the bricks while they're celebrating, especially something where, like this win with Carson Kvapil, that was very emotional, not only for Carson, but for his father, Travis, as well as Dale Jr., who showed some very, very rare emotion, I would say, in his interview. Perhaps, again, thoughts just aren't as clear, and, things just turned out that way. It seemed to me when I watched at the time, it looked like he kind of just, realized he did it and then backed off and all that. I don't know. I just feel gross kind of splitting hairs about it there. But if it is doing some actual damage to the bricks, if this particular act is doing it there, if we're losing the, the veneer of what's on those bricks, or whatever, or if it's, I mean, obviously there's multiple layers underneath it. We understand that. And if it's a matter of, losing that bit that's left, maybe, on that yard of bricks, maybe that section is just a lot thinner than every place else. I just feel like I need more information. I feel like I need more information on, like, how that's set up and, what it's like. And I think that would probably make it more persuasive, rather than just have it be a message that comes over the radio from NASCAR officials telling them not to do the burnout of the bricks. Let's actually see. Let's actually hear from the folks over at Indianapolis and the people that maintain the property, as to why that's the case. And then that would be, I think that would be helpful and instructive. And honestly, from a historical standpoint, I think it would be really interesting, to say, like, why that section is different from other parts on the track, where, of course, we know from the excavation that happened, what was that, turn one, where they were doing some, work over this past winter. We know that there's multiple layers of all kinds of different surfaces down there. And all that. So, I think getting that information, I think, would be helpful, so again, it's not my biggest topic. Honestly, I would hate for Carson Kvapil to be getting a lot of hate from that. Especially since it's been so long for him to get his first win. I mean, Travis, that was the first thing he brought up. Kudos to Matt Weaver for getting the video of his reaction when Travis was not at Indianapolis and working with Carson's brother Caden, running another late model race out there. That was, again, it should be recognized just for the victory that it was, because that was a hard fought win too. On Saturday at the same time. I know the aero package in that race is different and so forth there. But another way to kind of look at that. So yeah, exactly. And we did see some of that in the broadcast at Ryan Idius. Yeah. The Where's Mamba segment was cool. That talked about the bricks being dumped in the creek there. That was cool. That was the first time I'd heard that. I know we'd seen some of the bricks turn up there, but I didn't really hear the full story there until Junior was bringing that up, and the Mamba Smith was illustrating it there during the golf segment there. So that was cool. Yeah, just more things like that. But I think something more targeted on specifically that yard of bricks and like just understanding that that's just something they just don't do. That would be fine. Or if it turns out the opposite, if it turns out that it really doesn't do any damage to it. I saw the Goodwood Festival speed post here as well. I'm seeing a 611 Hornet mentioning it here as well. Yeah, that would be another one to if it turns out that it's not a big deal, like it isn't a big deal over there, then great. Yeah. Again, I mean, it has been, a century. It's lasted as long as it has, more than a century at this point. Again, what other ways to look at it? But this is the challenge when you're going to be using something that's a historical site at the same time. And I think, setting parameters are fine to an extent. Again, I'm not big on it with celebrations, because I think, especially as first time winner, it's going to be really uninhibited and you don't know what's going to happen. Obviously it's not going to be can't be anything dangerous or reckless to people, but it's just a messy situation. So hopefully we get some more information on that, and maybe that'll be something that'll be another opportunity to, hear both sides on that. Cause there are, I think, two compelling views on that, where, how much damage is really being done. Maybe there is a lot that's being done, but again, I don't feel like I have all that in front of me. Maybe a guy like David Land or somebody else that's, that eats, sleeps, and breathes Indianapolis can comment on it much more. I've never even been there personally myself. It's definitely on our list, but that's one to look at too. So we'll see on that. So again, I don't want to sound like I'm straddling, because I don't want to, upset people on this way or that way. It's not that. I just feel like there's a critical bit of information that I don't feel like I have in front of me there that keeps me from going into that. But I am happy for Carson Kvapil, though, on the win there. I mean, there's been so many races, and it seemed like at the end with Justin Allgaier catching him, that it was only a matter of time till Allgaier was going to get around him. Allgaier is easily the best veteran driver that's still in that sport now. I mean, I know he had Zilich dominating as much as he did last year, and we see him, still come back from time to time, but that 7 team is just bad to the bone out there. And JR Motorsports just dominated the top 4 again, even when they weren't, top 4 in qualifying. They just had the hot hand out there. But Kvapil, I'm so glad that, he was able to pull off a win, especially after having to trade rides with other cars and other teams and all that stuff. Now, this is the other part of it too. And I've been very vocal about, Cup Series guys running the lower series. But the other element that we're seeing today, that we didn't used to see as much, is, these drivers getting swapped in and out of what were full-time rides. Carson Kvapil being full-time in the number 1 car. Now he gets swapped over to DGM Racing in the 91. Much like we've seen with Raja Carruth getting into the Jordan Anderson car. And then the mem always comes up. It's like, oh, well, these cars aren't any different. When we bring the guy over to DGM, it's like, oh, it's basically the same equipment. It's like, okay, well, why don't we put the Cup guy in the DGM equipment like they do with Ross Chastain? Oh, well, we can't do that. Well, why? See, there's the problem I have with that. Why not keep Carson Kvapil in his full-time ride with his team and not have to go through this thing time and time again where he's got to get in a different car? Same thing with Raja Carruth. It can't be helpful to have to switch between rides time and time again. If you're going to do an inconvenience like that, especially for a guy that's a Cup Series regular, and I know Connor Zilich is struggling in the O'Reilly Series, or the Cup Series, obviously. I mean, just like today here too, but that still doesn't give you a license to come in there and disrupt somebody that's trying to do a full-time program, the O'Reilly Series, especially somebody that's trying to get their first win out there too. I just don't think that makes any sense. And I think it's a self-defeating, program that they have, with this, and it's unfortunate because it's just the latest phase that, this Cup Series invader thing has now. It used to be that they would have their own team and they would come in there and they would bump other guys out of the show. Thankfully, that's been, curtailed by the current regulations. And I'm glad that we have it, really at that point. But now it's at the point where you have these technical alliances with the programs that are still in there. And yeah, they're going to want to put their Cup guys in whenever they do. They work out like what, I know it's only like 2 races for Chase Elliott, but it could be a few more. Chastain was in several races in both O'Reilly and trucks this year. And they get the opportunity to be with, a team that's full time this year. And then somebody else, just gets, bumped on the outside of it. I think it's absurd. And of course, teams like, there's going to be some assets, I'm sure, that are brought to a Jordan Anderson team or a DGM racing team that are going to make them better than when DGM or Jordan Anderson's own drivers are in the cars. I get that. But it's still not the same thing. It really isn't. I can't believe that that's the case, because if that were the case, they would just put the Cup guy in those cars. I just think it's like, why is it so important that they got to be in this car at that time? So I don't know. It just seems silly to me. And again, maybe that's another, plan that needs to be kind of re-examined coming up here. Thankfully it's rare. I'm glad it's only a couple of those rides. It's only those ones with Raja and with Quapple there, but it still doesn't seem right. And again, I think it's, pushing back, it's just taking away possibilities of these guys getting their first wins and trying to kind of work their way up the ladder and everything. And for what, really? Again, if you're going to have these Cup guys come in there, they don't need to be given other advantages. It's like, oh, we got to make sure they're in the best car. We got to make sure they have the best sponsor. It's like, no, put them out there in make them, provide their own cars. At least, with Kyle Busch, at least he attempted that for, a time in his, his career there as well. That was very much, the same case there. And again, same thing with Ross Chastain with driving with DGM. And at least he was actually getting in, the 91 car from time to time. But now, yeah, you got Ross back in the JRM car there and, getting a third place run in the race. I just don't see the point in it there too. So, yeah, but again, I know I hammer that point every week on this, but that's a part of it that I don't feel like I've talked enough about. That being the team switches there. And I'm sure the teams will have their own reason for saying it's like, oh, well, we got the sponsors expect this and the team expects that. And it's really difficult to do this, whatever. Why? I think heaven and earth should be moved to the drivers you're developing, not the big Cup guys that they can get in a wheelbarrow out there and probably get a top 5. I honestly, I think that makes more sense. There we go. That's probably the reason I don't have a team myself. So who knows? Yeah, merchandise at JR Motorsports. Yeah, I get you, big all caps. But hey, how about merchandise at DGM Racing? How about merchandise at Jordan Anderson Racing? Let's talk about that. Maybe you want to have the sponsor in their colors, but on a different team. Why can't they do that? I don't know. But, easy for me to say, but I stand by it. I mean, that's still a point that I'm very, I try to maintain the consistency on there, because it takes different forms. Whenever you close a door, they're going to find another way in, and this determination, the ones that are still left. That's what remains. So, that's kind of where I am on that. Regardless, again, Quapple pulls off the win there, leading 23 laps. Had a similar deal with, again, cars kind of catching up to him there at the same time, but pulling off the victory. Again, it was wonderful for seeing Travis Quapple being able to celebrate the win, and Travis himself mentioning how long it had been for Carson to get his first win. Felt like it was going to happen earlier this year at Phoenix. I know it was one of the races that he had run very well in there at the same time. And Travis himself, being a Truck Series champion, getting up to the Cup Series, really wasn't that competitive. The series kind of didn't, went with different teams that, it was with Yates towards the end of their existence, was with Penske and the Doug Bowell effort kind of at a transitional period for them as well. It was kind of, not really in a lot of the best, rides out there in the Cup Series, and, never won a Cup race himself. But to see his son, doing this well in the O'Reilly series, getting a good top flight ride with JRM, at least part-time, being able to pull off the win there too, it's got to be tremendous for him. And it certainly looked like an emotional moment. So again, kudos to Matt Weaver for getting the video of that. I thought that was tremendous. I didn't realize he wasn't there at Indianapolis, but I'm glad he was able to see that as it happened there. So that was a cool moment. Again, you hear a lot about the famous father-son duos. You got your Earnhardts, other families, the Allisons and so forth, Petties. Yeah, you very much still have that today. And the Quapples are just one of those where, yeah, seeing the younger generation even really move things even further than the previous generation did. So that's exciting. So happy for them on that. And again, I hate that it's getting colored with this stuff with the brick thing. I think that's more of a, quite literally, a bump in the road here for, what was ordinarily, I think, a very positive story there at the same time. So Justin Allgaier in second, Ross Chastain in third, Chase Elliott fourth, sweeping the top four with JRM. And then Joe Gibbs entry with the number 18 for Williams Sawalich, bringing out the top five. Brent Cruz, Corey Day, Sheldon Creed, Brandon Jones, and Austin Hill rounding out your top 10. And how about Jeremy Clements? I know the day did not end the way they wanted to. Sounded like some kind of a battery or electrical issue that cost them a couple of laps. And there was such an absurdly low amount of attrition that issue by itself, even in the late stages of it, was enough to drop him to next to last in this race. But qualified fourth, got up to the front, and actually was able to take the lead there as well. Now, there was a little bit of controversy in this one, too, because David Starr, who got swapped back in for Dawson Cram over in the 47 car there for Mike Harmon, they just struggled for speed. The car wasn't, handling that well, but the biggest thing is he just absolutely did not have the speed to be able to keep up with the pack there and get in the draft, and lost touch with the field. And you had this collision, when worlds collide between the leaders and the back of the field, sometimes things don't work out that way. And in this case here, you had the leaders catching up. I believe it was Sheldon Creed at the time, catching up to David Starr there in turns 3 and 4. And it's a single groove track. I mean, where on earth was David Starr going to go? Was he going to go pull up the track and, plow up the wall like J.R. Hildebrand did in the Indy 500? No, there's one groove, and Creed just caught him in a bad spot, and there's nothing really he could do. He just had to slow up and follow him there, get around him on the front straightaway, and unfortunately, it cost him a 2-second lead that he had over Jeremy, who just got up to the second spot around Sam Mayer, and suddenly he's right on his rear bumper there. So, I'm reluctant to blame David Starr in that case. I know you got a lot of people that still have an axe to grind for him for the thing with Noah Gragson at Homestead a few years ago. But again, he had nowhere else to go. I mean, sometimes that just happens. The same thing happened with Andy Hillenberg at Darlington when Jeff Gordon ran into him there. If you just have a single groove track, the best you could do is just try to pass him on a good spot on the track. And if you don't catch him in the right spot, well, I mean, that goes two ways. You could have taken it a little bit easier into that corner yourself, maybe not lost as much ground, maybe come out of the other side of that with a 1-second lead. But unfortunately, it just didn't turn out that way. And he got blocked up behind him in turn 4, and that got cost him the lead there to Clements. But again, what a moment for Clements, too, who already to that point was, usually you see a guy that gets a good qualifying run, a place like Indianapolis, place where horsepower and top flight rides are really the big deal there. And usually you see somebody that maybe surprises in qualifying and then they drop it, they get shaken out like immediately. A place like Michigan or something like that would do that all the time, or Charlotte or something like that. But there in Indianapolis, Clements defended his spot, stayed in the top 5, got up to the second spot. And then when that issue with Starr happened, he was able to capitalize on it and go up there and take the lead. And that was just tremendous for him, getting the stage win on top of it. So happy for that group over there. They're a bunch of hardworking guys out of Spartanburg, which is itself very much a throwback in the sport. But unfortunately, they didn't get the run that they deserved on that. They were back to about 18th or 19th when they had the late race pit stop, dropped them a couple laps back and ended up in the 37th spot. But again, a fine showing out of them. Hopefully, it's going to be another sign of some good runs to come. They got the car in one piece, so they can get some good, runs down the future there. So happy for them on that. But your last place finisher in this one would be J.J. Yaley, the S&W Towing Company, which of course is the company that Rod Sieg, the RSS Racing Team's co-owner, or the RSS Team's owner, he co-owns the S&W Towing Company, back on the hood of the number 38. But unfortunately, it was a start and park effort there, basically. It was interesting listening to the radio. I haven't listened to Yaley's radio as much in these last couple of races, where this Ford for the Chevrolet manufacturer RSS effort pops up there. But they were basically talking about running about the same number of laps over at Chicagoland. And then when the battle for the lead got as tight as it was, they actually were saying, okay, let's stay out here a couple more laps because maybe there's going to be a big wreck. We can gain a couple of spots and then, pull off with our car in one piece. Ultimately, there wasn't a wreck, and so that's why he came down pit road. It even actually got on camera at one point during the CW broadcast, which I thought was pretty cool. But unfortunately, Yaley ends up with his second last place run of the year and joins the battle for the last car championship lead here. His first time since he finished last with the 38 at Indianapolis back in 2019, which was the year he won the last car championship in that year. So we'll see if he repeats in that sense there too. But I was really hoping to see this Ford team back at San Diego or Sears Point, but the RSS effort didn't bring it out there. They have kind of its own small trailer and stuff that they bring out to the track, which I also think is kind of interesting because it reminds me so much more of like Mike Harmon's hauler, but it looks like they coordinate with another team or they just have a smaller hauler on site or whatever the deal is there. But Yaley ended up being your last place finisher again the same time there too. Yeah, Bruni Mac. Yeah, same point there too. Yeah, burning out across the bricks is a big problem. What about skidding and wrecking across it? Yeah, same deal. Again, this is the consequence of having a living historical monument, someplace it's not just a museum where you walk in there and you don't touch anything. It's like this is a racetrack. It's going to be used as a racetrack and people are still going to be running there. And yeah, I mean, something accidental could happen. And yeah, there were examples back in the day. People were posting pictures of Ryan Newman or Jimmy Johnson and others that have already done burnouts on the bricks there too. And again, if they have proof of damage that has happened, it's like, okay, well, here's Jimmy Johnson did it this year and here's what was damaged from this, or we lost this over the years or something like that. Something concrete, like literally that would be a good thing for them to point at. I don't hear that. I think I seem to hear it more on a philosophical element. That's like, oh, you might be doing damage to it. Or we don't like that the tire marks are on the bricks. It just looks unsightly. If it's a cosmetic issue, that's one thing. If it's literally doing damage to it, I think most people can agree that maybe that was something to be curtailed. So hopefully that's something that gets looked at. I just don't know. I'm not getting a clear sense on which one it is. And I think it is intrinsically connected to NASCAR being, viewed as still kind of, the one crashing the party here for IndyCar at, their track, which of course, this is the Indy 500 is always going to be a bigger race than the Brickyard 400. That was never going to be in doubt. That's just the way it is. So, yeah. But at any rate, looking back at the O'Reilly Series race here, that's probably most of what I have on that. Sam Mayer looked really good at the beginning there and dropped back a bit to the 13th spot there at the finish. Nick Sanchez got in the top 20 there. Apparently he's going to be in the 87 for these next few oval races, which sucks for Austin Green because he is going to be the full-time guy in that car. I still don't understand why the Peterson team's not running a second car. They've done that before. Maybe the concept of doing two full-time cars is too much for them to take on, but it just seems like you got two good drivers there. And very similar to what happened at Nick's last ride with AM Racing with him and, well, Daniel Dye had the sponsorship there brought in there, which I'm sure was helpful in the short term. Yeah, it's a rough deal there too at the same time. No, I think it's mostly what I have to say on that one. So, yeah, I was just surprised how little attrition there was in that one. Again, you had the one caution there with Smithley spinning out and Yaley's last place run. Sided with the fuel pump issue there, but seemed to be a start and park effort from there. We'll go ahead and slam into the Truck Series race there and the excruciating Truck Series broadcast. From there was so much stuff that was happening in that event. And as a standalone event, much like with Lime Rock, we don't have access to the team radio, don't have access to the officials radio. Now, I would certainly hope that the people broadcasting the race do have access to it, and it would have been great to actually kind of understand what was happening. Instead, we got so many questions about, why did this happen? Why did that happen? Grant Enfinger got in the outside wall. A couple of trucks had damage to the left rear fenders at the end of the race. Don't know what on earth happened. And we'll never know unless I know Steve Toronto was doing a great job out at the track trying to pick up the pieces as best he could. Other people that were covering the race there, but the broadcast, They just kind of seem to just shrug their shoulders and just move on. And we found out that what Regan Smith's got a nickname is what Rigi Figi or something. I mean, I ended up learning that, but I have no clue what happened to, half the field in the middle of the track there. So just excruciating. I saw somebody make a comment that's saying like, oh, we need to apologize to Vince Welch. Like, he had the right excitement and just, needed to clear things up there on that. No, I mean, I think Vince Welch was struggling with the Truck Series broadcast too. I don't think that would fix things either at the same time. I think it's too, the similar problem with both of them is just not paying attention to what on earth is happening on the track and not conveying the information. If that's happening two different ways, I don't want either of them doing it. Now I'm hearing that Vince is doing a bit better doing the play-by-play with Alan Bestwick at Indy, and I hope he is. And again, much like with Jamie Little, Vince Welch is a fantastic pit reporter. He was there in Las Vegas in 2011 and handled that with tremendous professionalism, which was amazing. Just not good in the booth, and that's unfortunate. And it's not easy. It must not be easy because you got so many people that are great in other elements of it that know their stuff and know these drivers and know the names of their kids and everything, but for whatever reason just can't spit out the right sentence fragments to make the actual race really interesting and engaging and convey information and all that. So the search continues, and I'm glad to see Eric Brennan getting some more opportunities. And I hope he becomes a more permanent part of that experience. Because especially this last one in IRP was it was a really interesting race and a beautiful track. And again, just like North Wilkesboro, and had very competitive racing out there. But we got a very, very small fraction of what on earth was actually happening in that event there. And it's not like they didn't have time to do it with Lane Riggs stomping the field under his heel there. He had 198 of 200 laps he led. He just got the lead like pretty much right from the start and just was not headed the entire evening. The whole broadcast should have been just going through the field and talking about other things that were happening. Frustrating deal there at the same time there. But regardless, Riggs dominating again, putting Front Row Motorsports in kind of an interesting position. Apparently, they're still in the process of re-signing Noah Gragson for next year. They still got Zane Smith and Todd Gilliland, again, having their moments this year. Where does Lane go? Does he continue with the trucks and keep dominating there? Do you start an O'Reilly series program? I don't remember. I'm trying to remember if Front Row's done that before. Have they? I don't think so. It seems like they've been focusing much more on the Cup series, and then they just recently expanded into the Truck series here these last couple of years. But again, maybe something to look into, kind of like, GMS racing did back in the day there with John Hunter Nemechek. How it would be interesting to see where Lane would stack up with the current O'Reilly series crop. I know Front Row wouldn't want to let him go either. But of course, then on top of that, you got the overarching issue of where does Ford fit into this? Because we don't have any Ford teams out there. Yes, we had Yaley's car out there, but we don't have a organized team out there after AM Racing shutting down. What's happening over there? That would be interesting to find out too. But, Lane, I mean, my goodness, he's finally at the level that I feel a lot of us would have expected he would have been right when he started. When he made those first couple of starts for the Hallmar Friesen team, and he was getting top tens, and he was right in the mix there. It seemed like, hey, this kid's really got it. He's really going to be really tough, like right out the box. But it was an adjustment. And that first year with Front Row, he fell short of the playoffs, finally started kicking into gear, winning in Milwaukee. It's taken this time, but he's there now. He's really impressive out there. He seems to prevail on these, Lane Van Rigsbergen thing where he's really good on the road courses and the street courses, between San Diego and St. Petersburg. It's impressive. And, what more can be done from him dominating another year in the Truck series? I don't know, but it might just be an issue of just not being any other seats available for him to go. And I'm sure Ford is going to want to hold on to him as best they can under those circumstances. So we'll see what we have. They haven't had an O'Reilly team in 10 years. Okay, big all caps. Okay, so they did do it before. Okay, so if they've had that background. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, they did because they had Jeff Green win for the last car championship. That was a TriStar car. And that wasn't, yeah. I was thinking the Long John Silver's car that Jeff Green had, but I guess that was TriStar. That wasn't front row. So, I'm trying to think from that. I guess it wouldn't be a Mach 1 incorporated car. I'll have to look it up. Were they also running the 34 back then? I guess they probably were. I know that one they had the one with TriStar back in the day. That'd be another one to look at. Yeah, Tony Raines in the 34 and Jeff Green the 36. Okay, so I thought it was TriStar. Was TriStar still working with Front Row that year? Maybe that was a different collaboration. Or maybe I'm just remembering it wrong. Maybe that actually was Front Row. I mean, it seemed like they had the Front Row font on the cars. Maybe I'm getting that confused with another team because I know Jeff Green was in the TriStar 19, and the 10 and the 91 and all those other ones later. But I thought that started with the yellow cars back then. Could be a different one there. That was a Chevy, but it was Front Row. Okay. Gotcha. Okay, so I guess it was Front Row back then. Well, okay, that clears it up. So yeah, so that would have been, it was 16, 17 years ago. So yeah, right in the mix. But yeah, I mean, maybe that's something that can be looked at. If they have that experience, and of course that's a whole other generation of car ago, but hopefully maybe it could dredge Ford back up. I know people are pointing at Penske and saying, oh, we need to get Penske or Roush back in there and get them in there. It's like, no, maybe we don't. Maybe we just need to get like a Front Row in there and you have them develop an O'Reilly Series program. Maybe that can get them back in there. I think the Ford Dark Horse looks phenomenal on the O'Reilly Series body. I thought it looked great last year with the Haas factory team and RSS Racing. I thought they had beautiful paint schemes. It's unfortunate to see them scale back this year. Maybe that'd be something to kind of look into. That would be interesting. But yeah, more teams than O'Reilly, absolutely. And if you got guys like this that are this good, like Riggs, and I think it would even extend that to maybe giving Chandler Smith another run at it too, because he's been really good as well. Not quite in the same avenue as Riggs has been. But of course, you had Smith struggled with Gibbs in that 81 car there a couple years ago, but maybe a fresh start with the Ford organization could turn things around. That would be interesting. But yeah, we'll see. I think that'll be something to look at. The McAnally team is probably another one that could probably look at maybe doing something in O'Reilly, especially since it's been so Chevrolet dominated here as well. Maybe that's something they'd look into. Although they got their hands in a lot of different places too with doing their West Series program and their founding organization from so long in the sport too. So maybe that's a little too much for them to take on, but that'll be another one. Didn't even bring up last place finish here. Jackson Masenko finishing in the last spot there with rear gear issues on the number 2. Pulled off the track there, lost power on the track and pulled into the garage area there as well. Christian Eckes had a rare mechanical issue there. Speaking of the McAnally team, dropped a many laps down, but got back out there. Daniel Hemrick and Landon Lewis in a pretty grinding accident there. A lot of damage to the Lewis truck there on the number 45. Good to see both those drivers were okay there at the same time. And really excited to see in the Truck Series kind of turned into what the O'Reilly Series and even Cup to an extent were, of having a lot of newcomers in the sport and trying to kind of cut their teeth out there. Of course, Gavin Biscelli, the ARCA driver, getting in the top 10 was a tremendous run out there. But even some of the other drivers further back in the lineup there, Monty Tipton driving for the team Realm effort there in the 22, he was in the top 20 at one point there before he got cycled back to a 30th place finish out there. And that was a surprising one because I saw Derek Lemke was injured in that truck this week. I don't know when he got swapped into it there this time around. My entry list article actually didn't even mention him. But him getting his debut here in that race was a good effort from them as well. And then Masenko, your last place finisher, the Realm number 2, was another driver making his debut. And then Caston Everidge, late model driver there that was running double duty with a Racing Anderson, getting in there for the Caleb Costner effort there, the number 93, also starting the race there. So I love it when you get new faces out there and people are really trying to challenge for their spots, because then, at some point in the future, one of these guys really takes off. You can say, oh, this is where they made their debut. This is where they did their National Series debut. I didn't watch the pre-race to the truck race on Friday, so I don't know how much they were featuring these guys. Hopefully they did. Used to be they would do that Craftsman Spotlight segment. They would talk about guys like that, but I don't know if that was done this time around. But If they didn't, it was a missed opportunity because, again, I think it was interesting kind of doing the entry list article this past week to kind of talk about the different competitors in there. But I thought that was really good. And I was excited for Parker Eatman as well, driving the Al Nice effort, the number 42 team that almost won with Tyler Reif back at San Diego. Eatman was very impressive back at Rockingham. I remember seeing him right in there in the top 10, the first stage of that race, and it looked like he was maybe going to actually have like a really good run in one of his first starts. Unfortunately, kind of faded back in the pack here. But this one here, Eatman was right in around the top 10 and ended up back in the 12th spot there, the checkered flag. Still a solid run there for him. Finishing on the lead lap in a race where one driver was this dominant, I think is definitely something positive in his column. So I'm very excited to see what he can do in his next start here as well. That was something definitely wanted to talk about more in the article there that was posted. You've already had the Truck Series and the O'Reilly articles already posted there on the lastcar.info page. The Cup article, tentatively on Kyle Larson, will be coming up later tonight here as well. So we'll have some more information on that shortly. Looking through the field, that's mostly what I have on that one. Let's check inspection. Do we have a word on inspection? I haven't kind of looked at the chat too much here. We'll kind of see what we have here too. Yeah, Penske shut down the O'Reilly program once Cindric graduated. That's what it seems like too, yeah. Looking here. Race results. Okay, in-season tournaments. Now, I don't see an announcement yet, unless you guys kind of changed there. I see I got a couple super chats to catch up on. We'll get into those there in a little bit, and we'll do that too. We'll also do our trivia portion here on the show, and I also have news on next video for the channel here as well. Let's see. Yeah, I can't get over the whole thing about, Heim winning it on Arrington's birthday. Just so I could get a more perfect of him winning at San Diego, where it was a blue number on a red background with a white outline. I'm so glad I got to ask him that question because he was not aware of the 67. He was only talking about, he was already looking ahead to running the 35 and knowing that that number hadn't won. So I'm glad that he had that, and then getting to win it, winning the number again there, just tremendous. I think that's really cool. Again, maybe not the most exciting race out there, but the outcome is certainly notable. So that's for sure. Let's see. Yeah, there we go too. Oh, yeah, Michael Jensen, thank you for your super chat there as well. I'll catch up on you guys here too in a moment. Okay, I got that one on here. Yeah, I got that note. Yeah, I should get to that too on here. Yeah. I didn't mention the again, it's a little bit it's too bad about the the whole this tension that seems to be here again between IndyCar and NASCAR. And I'm not saying it's coming from nowhere. I know there was the Daniel Dye thing, and then there was, things like that, but again, I think the IndyCar series with the Washington DC race coming up, I thought the pit stop they did at the White House was pretty cool. I hope that's successful. I mean, again, I know there's a lot of that's getting flung back and forth here between stock car and IndyCar, it seems like, especially on this weekend here, but I really do hope that race is successful. I'm envious that NASCAR didn't land that event, although I think the San Diego thing was really exciting, and I think that went pretty well, although there were some logistical things that they definitely need to work out for next year if they do it again. But I think that I'm excited about the America 250. I guess they got it scheduled in such a way that it looks like you can watch it before the race at the Cup race at New Hampshire that weekend. At least I hope so, because I would like to check that out there for sure. We had the news this week about Alex Bowman retiring at the end of next year. There's just also news on top of that this morning that Jimmy Johnson's going to run the 48 in his last start. in the Daytona 500, and they worked out a deal between Legacy Motor Club and Hendrick. So it'll actually be on a Toyota, apparently, for the number 48 car next year with Johnson in the 500. Leaves open the possibility of Bowman running a different number next year, although maybe it's going to be just for that one race in Daytona, and maybe he runs, the 48 the rest of the season. I don't know how they're working that out. There was speculation about him running the 25. I think the old Jerry Nadeau font would look pretty awesome. I'm definitely partial to that for sure. But as to Bowman himself, though, I mean, it's I know that he said that this was more of an age thing, that he didn't want to compete in the Cup Series past 35, and he's coming up on that. That it says it has nothing to do with injuries, which undoubtedly he has had. That wreck that he had at Texas, the wreck in the sprint car, the other things that he's had to deal with in his career up to this point. It's been quite the ride, and it's unfortunate. I feel at the same time, that he's kind of been the odd man out over at Hendrick. That you got a lot of people circling that ride and saying, "Oh, why isn't so and so in this car? Why isn't so and so in this car? Why is he in it?" It was an extraordinary set of circumstances that kind of worked out for him getting in there, but he earned that seat. He had to get that situation where he was the super sub for Dale Jr., and then getting brought over there to the 48 car after Jimmy retiring, and being in an unenviable position, very similar to like a guy like Rick Wilson stepping in for Richard Petty, or kind of like what Austin Hill is dealing with now with driving Kyle Busch's car. A lot of pressure in that ride and responding and then winning in, a number of races, not really being a full championship contender, but being very fast in Daytona, had that streak of front row starts there. Winning in Chicagoland, winning then at the Chicago Street Course, in that time there as well. It's not been a terrible career for him there. And especially given the fact that he had to drive, he drove for Tommy Baldwin. He drove for BK Racing. He really earned his lumps there at some very small organizations. D. Dallin Cavana posting the video earlier this week saying that he really felt like he was never going to get a ride at a place like a Hendrick. But then circumstances worked out that he found himself in there, almost won at Phoenix at his home track in one of his very first starts for that organization out there. It's been a heck of a ride out there. And I think wanting to retire on his own terms, at least from full-time competition, we'll see what he does on a part-time basis. Certainly what we're seeing with Corey Heim is showing that you could be a part-time guy and be very, competitive out there, even competing for wins. Certainly wish him the best, on that. And hopefully he has a good chance at having a good season next year, whether it's a full season championship or a chase format, whatever the deal is. That still remains to be seen. He's been a very interesting kind of underdog driver. I'll admit I haven't interviewed him that much to this extent. It seems like he's kind of a driver I would run into from his time back at, BK Racing and these other organizations. I still love that video where he went around and he was interviewing people in the infield at Charlotte that didn't know who he was and made it seem like he was just a guy just asking about the rookies in general. Appreciate his sense of humor and all that in the sport. And, again, it's a cast of characters. You get to know some of these drivers, at least, what you expect from one week to the next. And with him, certainly some bad luck along the way, certainly the injuries, certainly the penalty at the Roval there that knocked him out of the playoffs. You think of moments like that, but you certainly hope that at the end of it, when it's all said and done, you think much more about the positive things. And then it sounds like he's got a mind to do whatever he wants to do on the other side of racing. And of course, there is a whole big world outside of this sport. It seems all consuming when you're in the middle of it here, even on this element here from the viewing side of it. But undoubtedly there's other things he wants to do in life. And I applaud him for pursuing that, because it's not easy to make that decision. And I'm sure he didn't make it lightly either. So that'll be something to see what happens here at the same time. Uh-oh, my picture's glitching. Okay, it looks like I think we're okay here. I have it on this. Let me make sure I don't have a cable coming loose or something like that. But that'll be another part of that there too. On that same note, we had the other news, the other rumor that seems like it wouldn't go away, that being of Days of Thunder 2. Sounds like that's moving forward. They got Tom Cruise involved in it. Again, I know it's mixed feelings on it here with not having, Robert Duvall with us anymore. Others, Don Simpson and others that were involved in the original film. And yeah, I mean, how good is it going to be? I mean, I don't know. It could just be its own thing, kind of like how, I'd like to believe it gets the Top Gun Maverick treatment. For how enjoyable that movie was, even being better than the original. I think being better than the original Days of Thunder is going to be kind of a tall ask. I think it's going to be pretty difficult to do in this sense. I think Days of Thunder is a better movie than Top Gun. But it's tough to say. It's tough to say. And I think the other trappings of the sport may be a bit of an issue narratively. If we're going to be talking about, the chase format, if we're going to be talking about, I'm just trying to think of like shoehorning things like the choose cone and double foul restarts and overtime finishes and everything else, like the Amp Lemon video was breaking down into a story that's very simply about, trying to win the Daytona 500. That those are going to be a bit of a challenge, and I don't know how that's going to work out. Although, I feel like F1 did a solid job of kind of glazing over a lot of the specifics, and kind of blurring the lines a little bit of the more rigid elements of that sport there without making it really tedious. So that was good. So maybe it will work out that way. I am kind of hopeful that Hans Zimmer is going to do the soundtrack because I think that was such a big part of the experience. I still remember to this day, picking up a copy of that soundtrack there online and being able to hear it for the first time and just how influential that was. Obviously Hans Zimmer still got it from the work that he did on F1. But it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting, and Tom Cruise doesn't, knows how to, put a good movie under him there too. So hopefully something happens there too. Got a wobble from the machine here. I hope it's not this. I don't think let's see. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Is it too close? Maybe this pole is too close. I have my camera on a stand here. Maybe it's getting shaken on my laptop. So I'll kind of move that back there. Maybe that will hopefully not. There we go. Kind of move my computer a little bit here. I don't think that'll do it. So we'll see. Figure out from there too. But yeah, maybe got to change the left rear wheel. Yeah, who knows? Maybe the Clash comes back to Daytona. We got rumors about that too. That'll be interesting. I think the Bowman Gray thing was a worthwhile experiment. I think Bowman Gray still has a beautiful atmosphere. I think it would make a great all-star race. Because it's already, we're already doing heat races in smaller fields. Maybe that'll be where things kind of go from here. Because I'd hate to lose it altogether. I think it definitely showed it was a much better fit than the LA Coliseum was, as much fun as it was to cover that race. But maybe that'll be something to be looked at there too. So, maybe that'll work better than even, returning to Charlotte for the All-Star race would. Although Charlotte, again, has that element of being a qualifying, a warm-up session for the 600, and maybe returning to that would be good. Who knows? Maybe if we're talking about rotating venues for the championship race, maybe the All-Star race is still in that segment. It just can't be at Dover. I think I think people seem pretty much in agreement that just didn't work out. And that would have been a fine Dover race, but not an All-Star race at all for that element of that. I think that's another part to look at. Yeah, Bowman Gray All-Star Madhouse. Yeah, that would be pretty fun. That would be pretty fun. Where do I think Dover fits on the schedule? I don't know. You could probably put that anywhere. I mean, we've had it in the spring, the summer, and the fall. So I think it's just, wherever it lands. I think it should have a race because I think they got a good fan base up there. Same reason that you got the New Hampshire races up there. So yeah. Would SMI give up the All-Star race? Yeah, probably not, but I don't know. Maybe they invest in a Bowman Gray and it lifts all boats. Who knows on that one? But that would be another one. Let's see here. Oh, let me not bury the lead on this one here as well. So I do want to mention as well on the channel here, after the live stream tonight, I am pleased to say I've now completed work on my video on Kyle Busch. I've done a Kyle Busch tribute video. It's about an hour and a half in length. And the reason for that length will become apparent once the video is published. I'm reluctant to give away the store on that one there, but after the stream tonight, I'm going to make it publicly available in my Patreon for Patreon members. So patreon.com/lastcaronbrock for members $5 and up. You'll be able to watch that video throughout this week. And then my plan is, I'm pretty much sure I'm going to lock this date in. August 1st, this next Saturday, since there's no cup race this weekend, I'm going to be premiering the video that night. So we'll have a premiere here on the channel. It'll be probably like early, mid-afternoon, something like that. We'll work that out here, afternoon here on the West Coast, and so it'll be evening on the East Coast. And, take advantage of the fact that it's an off weekend there to put a new video out. So I am pleased to say, finally, about getting some new produced content here on the channel. It's been a long haul on that one. This one kind of came together here, of course, after the tragedy back in May. And work really began on that early June, right before we did the trip to San Diego and Sears Point, and I've been just really working on it here pretty much single-handedly here since July, coming back here to get that going. So, again, the video will be available at patreon.com/lastcaronbrock in the Patreon for $5 and up members after the stream here tonight, and the premiere tentatively set for this next Saturday, August 1st. We'll do a premiere here as well on that. I don't know if I'll do a live stream afterwards. Maybe we will. We'll see how things kind of look on that end, but we'll figure that out at the same time. On the same note here, I want to give a shout out to a couple special individuals here as well that I know are going through some hard times. I want to offer my prayers to Rick Houston, first of all, from the Scene Vault. I understand he's going through cancer treatment at the moment from news that was posted here this past week. Had a tremendous time, working with Rick here. Had the opportunity to see him at the track there, both at Las Vegas and at Darlington. Then, of course, we did the interview with Jerry Nadeau last year. We came out for the Rockingham trip there. He's a tremendous individual and has really taken on so much work there in trying to get the Scene Vault digitized, to get the Scene magazine out there, and indeed has now gone to that step and actually had, gone through all that to get the Scene archives digitized, but then trying to get it publicly available. It absolutely needs to happen. I mean, I don't know what needs to be done to legally go over the last couple of, obstacles here to get that done, but undoubtedly it needs to. I mean, we've already lost Steve Wade here just recently in the last couple of weeks, and now we got Rick going through this here at the same time. I hope that something gets worked out on that end. And if there's anything I could do on that end, I'm trying to think of something there on that end too, because it would be tremendous. There's so much in this sports history that is in, the Scene archive, so much more. I mean, I just used like one issue. I think I used like 2 issues in the Derek Cope research and 1 in the JD McDuffie one. And there was already so much just from those themselves that it would have not been the same in either of those books without the material that was in there. And Rick and Steve have been a big part of that there as well, both through their writing and through the podcast there as well. So certainly pulling for Rick there as well. And also extending my prayers to Jimmy Means as well. There was a post earlier today that Jimmy is going to have heart surgery tomorrow. And so certainly hoping things go well there for him as well. Of course, famously, the owner-driver for the number 52 car for many years, the Alka-Seltzer ride there. Past team owner. Unfortunately, we don't have his team in the O'Reilly series there anymore, but stayed in the sport for a very long time after the end of his driving career. So certainly pulling for the both of them very much so there as well. So, with that, I'm going to step aside here for just a moment. We're going to come back here. We're going to do our trivia portion. I'll do super chats here as well, and then we'll wrap up the show for this evening. So again, thank you for staying tuned here, folks. I'll be back in just a moment. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We'll do our trivia section here and do a few questions. Nice to have the show a little bit earlier in the day. I feel like I got so much more energy than the last couple of these shows, I will admit. Having done, I mean, gosh, I was just thinking back to it. I think we had, what was it, Michigan? It was Michigan before San Diego, right? Because that's where Christopher Bell had his wreck. And then we had the Sears Point show where we were at night at the cabin. And then the San Diego show, we were in Bishop, California, and we got to a hotel very late that night and did a show there. And then we did the cabin one at Sears Point the week after. And then we had the Atlanta race that went way, way late. And we had a show I think it was like 11 o'clock or midnight over here. New Hampshire or North Wilkesboro was a night race, so that was also kind of a later show. Not as late at 9 or 10. Now, finally, we're back to here. Yeah, I guess Atlanta, Chicago, and North Wilkesboro were all night races. Yeah, so Pocono was before okay, thank you. Pocono was before San Diego. Okay. Yeah, so... again, yeah, just a really, yeah. So glad to have a race a little bit earlier in the day. So it's a little bit easier. So I know I've been rambling a bit on tonight's show, but, yeah, that's definitely part, where it's, kind of getting my feet back under me on that. Anyway, let's do some trivia questions. Now, which one should we do? We don't have a 67 car on here. We have the 6 and the 7. We have the Mark Martin and Michael Waltrip cars. Go ahead and let me know in the chat which one you'd like me to use as our avatar. I think we did the, what was it? Did we do Stewart last week? No, we did Ward Burton last week because of Joe Logano winning. That's right. We got Nemechek, we got Andretti, and then we got these ones down here. We got Dale Jr. and Richard Petty here as well. So we could do that. Yeah, they need to make it possible to stream NASCAR all year long. Yeah, I mean, we got close to it. I mean, now, these days, it's pretty nice. We got the NASCAR Classics page. We got the free channel that's on, Tubi? Is that still there? I haven't watched that in a bit. But last I checked, it was pretty cool. And now you got the stuff on YouTube here as well. So that's always nice. And you got a new video coming up this week. So very excited about that. I wanted to release it. My goal is to have it released in July. Technically, it will be because it'll be Patreon access tonight. But then, it'll be publicly available on the 1st after the premiere that day. So that's what I'm looking at there. I know I have a work obligation on the 31st. I was thinking of doing it on Friday, but also that's Last Bro's birthday, so I'm going to keep that open. But I'll probably do it on the 1st would be a good one for the Kyle Busch video. So first day of the 8th month maybe will be a good tie-in with that too. But I hope you guys enjoy it. It's taken a lot of work for sure. But once I had kind of an idea for it, it's pretty much been the only thing I've worked on since the early June. And the good news is I have 2 other scripts, those other ones I keep mentioning on the show here, that are 2-parters that I've already recorded. So I plan to kind of catch up on those too. Although I'm very anxious to do some more writing again. So I'll figure that out here during this off weekend here, and I should have a better idea of trajectory from there. I'm also going to just take some time, just kind of regroup here as well. I had some pretty late nights here on this one, so we'll get that back going here too. Looks like the audio is real low on the game. Can you guys hear this? I don't know if you guys can hear this. There we go. There we go. Let's bring that up. Boy, it is really choppy. It is chugging big time. Okay. Let's see here. Let's do Dale Jarrett is 32 in the Busch Series at the same number font as 2311 Racing. Well, that's possible. Or for the one car for the Quapple. Junior seems to be the consensus. Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's right. Junior Motorsports. Okay, yeah, let's do that. I don't think we've done Junior on here. Oop.
Number 3, Dale Earnhardt Jr.
All right. Yeah, I can barely hear the game audio. Let's see if it's better here. Whoop, there goes my light.
Today's game is played just like the board game. You'll move around the board answering questions. You're heading for the wedge tiles. A right answer there
How about that?
puts you one lap closer to the finish line. And when you've got all your wedges, head for the center tile. You'll have one final question to answer. And if you get that one right, we'll have a new race champion. Good luck.
Yeah, thing
Click
is
on the
misfiring
tachometer
here.
to
Exactly.
roll the die. Click
Okay, hang on.
F1 for more information on the game categories.
Right. We got the AC Delco car here. Let's make sure we get the timer turned off. Come on. Advanced gameplay. Come on. Got to look past the mic here to get to that. Okay, here we go. Now I can look at this way. Hopefully the audio has still been good here on the show using the trackside mic here. This has worked. I think it's worked pretty well for my video recording here. It's a little more maneuverable here, and it stays out of my way. That other mic, that podcast mic that you always see, I think Door Bumper Clear uses it. It is heavy. You could use that thing as a really good paperweight, and it's a little too much for this arm. So I think this one works pretty well. Okay. All right.
Select a category.
Audio's good. Okay, good. Yeah, it is choppy. All right. Let's start with NASCAR. Let's have about that.
What are the first names of the 3D Racing Flock brothers? Tiny, Tim, Billy, Tim, Bob, Funty.
Oh, the air gun there.
Bobby, Billy, Tommy, Slick, Monty, Red.
Okay, we chugged our way through that one. What were the names of the names of the 3 racing Flock brothers? Was it Tiny, Tim, and Billy? Tim, Bob, and Fonty? Bobby, Billy, and Tommy? Or Slick, Monty, and Red? Got 43 people in here. There we go. Yeah, now we're back in the afternoon here. We're getting a little better viewership here. I know we had 20, I think, very hardy viewers here for these last month or so of very late evening shows, but I'm glad we're back to something a little more reasonable. Okay. And a lot of you got number 2. I think you guys are right. You guys are too good. You got Fonty in there. Wow, this thing is 56%. I don't know if you can see it very well on your screen here, but you got the percentage up here in the corner. You can see how much it's chugging. We're down to like 55, 56%. By the way, I watched that Andrea Dore video that was on my browser when we were watching videos last week. And yeah, very good. And there's a new one that's up by the Steam and Splendor Network. I've only watched the beginning of it, but it looks quite good as well. Tiny Tim. Yeah, there we go.
Select the category by moving to one of the...
All right.
Which Bodine was once a fabricator on Hendrick Motorsports? Bobby, Jeffrey, Todd, Brett.
All righty. Which Bodine was once a fabricator for Hendrick Motorsports? Was it Bobby, Jeffrey, Todd, or Brett? I'll do super chats here after the after our trivia section here, because then I can take the background music out there on that. But in the meantime, we'll do a couple more questions here on this one in the meantime. Which Bodine was once a fabricator for Hendrick Motorsports? Don't look it up. Try to guess here. Is it Bobby, Jeffrey, Todd, or Brett? I'm seeing a lot for Todd. I see a couple for Jeffrey. Have you seen the trailer for the 3-part NASCAR Americana documentary? Yes, Armor, I have. I like it. I think it's... it seems like we've had plenty of documentaries on the history of NASCAR. Specifically, by that, I don't mean like on everything on NASCAR history. I think there's plenty more there. But on the history of NASCAR itself, like, the Francis and Streamline Hotel and the first Daytona 500. And we've seen that plenty of times. What I like with this one is it looks like it's going to be focusing on the cultural impact of the sport. Like, or maybe how one answers the other, like how American culture affects NASCAR, how NASCAR affects American culture. That could get really interesting. Maybe it'll expand beyond it and focus on things like, maybe the marketing of the sport or its effect on advertising or the different drivers that have come into the sport over the years, the different generations of them. Yeah, that could be interesting. I'll be interested. So hopefully it's something that's a little different than the usual because, again, it's kind of like with the Earnhardt documentary where it's hard to break new ground on it because the story's been done so many times over. I hope it's just something new. So we'll see. A lot of you guessing Todd. I see a few Jeffrey and one for Brett. Let's go with Todd. I think you guys are right. I think this was on the Scene Vault podcast recently. There we go, Todd.
Roll again.
I did not see the Key Bridge collapse. That sounds interesting. Rick and Mortar had that. Excellent. I've watched a couple of his. He's got a very interesting tone to his videos. And I have not seen that one yet.
Move to any highlighted tile.
I'll go back to this one for another NASCAR one. There you go. Get a little better view of the numbers. It's got kind of a standard number font there on the junior car.
How many 1997 NASCAR Winston Cup Series races were won from the pole?
Ooh, don't look it up. Try to guess it here.
4, 8, 3.
Alrighty, you heard Eli there. How many 1997 NASCAR Winston Cup Series races were won from the pole? Is it 10, 4, 8, or 3? That sounds really choppy. Really, really choppy. All right, what say you guys? 10, 4, 8, or 3? I see options for all of them so far. Answer choice 3 for 8. Yeah, try to put the actual guess rather than the number of the choice, because that'll be a little confusing. 8 sounds about right. It's the afternoon just before Cup race started. Alrighty, let's see.
4.
Oh, it's 4. Wow, it was rare that year. Interesting. I told you last week, 96, 97 are years I don't remember that clear. I'm kind of using my small screen to look at the big screen here to make it a little bit easier.
Select the category by moving.
Ooh, can we get a wild card one? Yeah, let's do that. There you go. Good view of the car there.
How tall was Big Bill? 6'5".
Oh, what's this?
5'7".
What is going on with the graphics here?
6'2".
we got a big time graphics issue here on this one. Wow. Okay. Well, the question was supposed to be how tall was Big Bill France? Was he 6'5", 5'7", 6'8", or 6'2"? How tall was Bill France Sr.? It said Bill France Sr., right? I assume that's what it was. I'm already forgetting that. I got to glance at the screen. It's not giving me anything. We got some major glitches coming today. So the answer to the question, which is question not found. Oh, there you go. I'm trying to refresh the screen, but it's not going to work on that. 6'7", 8'9". 6'8". Which of these numbers do you like the best? 6'5", 5'7", 6'8", or 6'2"? There you go. You all blasted your answers like the pack coming off pit road. 4 and 5 wide. Yes, indeed. Those look like Kyle Busch style 8s. You know they do. Like I think they're supposed to be parallel lines or like a NASCAR logo, but now that you mention it, yeah, they kind of do. Don't they look like Kyle Busch 8s? I don't know. I hope this is a positive sign for the Kyle Busch video this week. I hope it's not a negative sign for it. I mean, again, yeah, it's the risk you run whenever you put it out there. We'll see how the patrons like it here tonight through this week. And then if there's any changes need to be made here before Saturday, we'll have time to do that. So that's kind of the goal right now. Might need to invest in different software package for streaming this game. Well, come on. This is fun. All right. I'm going to go with 6. Do we even have a leader on this? 6'5", 6'7". It's not 5'7".
6 foot 5.
There you go. Oh, tech is complete? Look at that. We got the ultimate wild card
Take
question.
another turn.
Move to any highlighted tile.
Wow, this thing is really ripping it tonight. There we go. 1 minute ago. Yes, indeed. Bob Pockros tweeting, Cup Tech is complete. No issues. Corey Heim is the winner. No cars. Repeat, no cars to the R&D Center. There we go. Oh, I like the Joey Logano quote here. I know his trucks were good, but I think the driver was spectacular. He's got it. We're going to be battling him forever, says Logano. So, yeah, how about that? So, congratulations to Corey Heim on his second career victory, and it will indeed be a article there on Kyle Larson there for tonight. Josh Berry with the top 10 as well. Seeing Steve Toronto posting pictures of the car getting loaded there. Third top 10 finish, first since Martinsville in April. Didn't mention that there on the show, so kudos indeed to him on that. We'll scooch forward to tracks again. See what we got. DOS box or virtual box. Yeah, this is PCEM here on this one.
What track saw Morgan Shepherd win his first race for the
I mean, it only does it a little bit.
Darlington,
I mean, it's kind of
Richmond,
part of it.
Atlanta, Martinsville.
All right, what track saw Morgan Shepherd win his first race for the Wood Brothers? Was it Darlington, Richmond, Atlanta, or Martinsville? His first race for the Wood Brothers, his first win for the Wood Brothers. Where did that take place for Morgan Shepherd? Darlington, Richmond, Atlanta, or Martinsville? Where does Josh Berry land next year? I have no idea. I almost think if one of the JRM cars opened up, like if somebody gets promoted from there, that he lands in one of those again. But it's unfortunate. Junior being very outspoken on Berry's struggles, especially for all the effort that he put in to get from late models to Cup, and how rare that is these days. How hard it is for guys to get into the Cup Series. Yeah, his struggles just frustrating, and it's really too bad because he's a heck of a talent. I saw him win that O'Reilly race at Vegas a couple years ago, and he was very impressive. All right, I see a lot of guesses for Atlanta, and it looks like that's going to be the answer. Atlanta.
Take another turn.
Watch Berry wind up in the RCR 33. Well, that's possible. That's possible, 611. I hadn't thought of that. I mean, Austin Hill has certainly had struggles in that this year.
Highlighted tile.
Gosh, just gonna keep moving one. I'm gonna get the roll again so I can move further along here.
You can keep select the
There we
category
go.
by moving to one of the highlighted
Gosh, just keep
tiles.
getting tracks questions. Oh, I can go back here. That's their NASCAR question.
This question's for a wedge.
We'll get a wedge. Yeah, Barry in the 33 would be an interesting match. I think that would work out well. Yeah.
Where did Rusty Wallace finish in his first NASCAR Winston Cup race?
Ooh, for our Rusty fans.
10th, 5th, 2nd.
Alrighty, where did Rusty Wallace finish in his first NASCAR Winston Cup race? Was it 1st, 10th, 5th, or 2nd? Gotta get the wedge, man. Get the wedge. For the wedge, is it 1st, 10th, 5th, or 2nd, where Rusty Wallace finished in his first NASCAR Winston Cup race? Don't look it up. Try to guess it. Last, no, it's not an option on here, Jude Fernandez, but I appreciate the thought. Seeing a lot of guesses for 5th, seeing a few for 2nd, seeing one for 10th. Rusty Wallace, of course, in the Hall of Fame. Let's see what we got here. I believe that also was at Atlanta. Rooney Mac, I believe you are right. And I'm going to go with second. Let's see. Ooh, there we go. There we go. We got it.
And that's so bad.
One of these days, we're not going to do it today, I don't think. But we could try to do it when we get all the wedges.
So select the category by moving to one of the highlighted time.
It's...
What driver's crew won the 1994 76?
Yeah, Armor, I am colorblind. Yeah, I do have trouble with blue and purple.
Gordon's,
Red and
Ricky
brown,
Wright's,
too.
Rusty Wallace's.
What driver's crew won the 1994 76 pit crew competition? Interesting question. Pit crew competition winners. Was it Elliott's crew, Gordon's, Rudd's, or Rusty's? Yeah, Rusty did have a problem with Gordon. The Rusty and Gordon rivalry was much more prominent than the Gordon and Earnhardt rivalry, if you can believe that. At least it felt that way. By the way, thank you guys for picking up stickers in the lastcar.info store. If you go to lastcar.info and click shop or store at the top of the page, I do have free shipping on the stickers that are in there. We have a good cross-section of designs now. We got some tribute stickers to both Kenny Irwin and James Hilton. We got new Last Car Racing stickers as well. It'll look good on your computer or your water bottle or your workspace or your car or wherever else. Also got hats still in there if you like a white hat like this one here with the lastcar.info embroidered locally here in the California Gold Country. And still some die cast in there as well that I've collected here over the last bit that are available in there. So if you were interested in any of that, definitely check that out. Again, the store link at the top of the lastcar.info page. All right, what driver's crew did win the 94-76 pit crew competition? Yeah, I see guesses for Bill Elliott. I see ones for Gordon. I see a couple for Ellie. I see one for Rudd. Let's see. Maybe Elliott.
Jeff Gordon.
Oh, it was Gordon's. How about that?
Click on the tachometer to roll the die.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, get a gas can, water bottle, put the Unical 76 sticker on. That would look good. They do have those. They sold those at Phoenix a couple of years ago. I assume they still sell those. They got that team figured out real quick.
Move to any highlighted tile.
Armor 20, knocking them down.
The maximum engine size to in 1965 to slow down cars.
Now this is an interesting one.
396 cubic inches, 428 cubic inches, 454 cubic inches, 426 cubic inches.
Alrighty, what did NASCAR lower the maximum engine size to in 1965 to slow down cars? Was it 396 cubic inches? Was it 428, 454, or 426? Which one? What was the cubic inches that was lowered to? Oh, we got a bit of a cross section. We got 428, 454. I see them both popping up here. What did NASCAR lower the maximum engine size to in 1965 to slow down their cars? How many cubic inches? Was it 396, 428, 454, 426? I believe it is why he went drag racing. Beast of Metal. Good catch. Appreciate you guys tuning in here tonight to Behind the Wall, the only post-race show that comes on after the race. We're now officially, Corey Heim has pulled off the victory, and Kyle Larson is your last place finisher. Alrighty. I'm seeing a lot of guesses for 428. Oh, you guys got it. You're too good. You are too good.
take another turn.
Yeah, Andrew, the Jimmy Means, and again, certainly hoping for the best here on his treatment tomorrow there. Absolutely. It'd be interesting to hear about Graham Taylor and Johnny McFadden. I think apparently Graham Taylor, I believe, was an ARCA driver, and Johnny McFadden was a part-timer in Cup. Jimmy told me they called them grocery getters. He didn't give me too much more information on that when I did the JD interview. I'll have to ask him again. But yeah, I love hearing about the grocery getters back then. Also having Mike Potter there later on. You saw that featured in the video a while back.
You can move to any highlighted tile.
Let's get our wild card question. Let's get a little wild. Hey there, Austin. Thank you for tuning in.
What branch of the military did Bill France Jr. serve in? Army? Coast Guard?
Well, it's not quite the only post-race show. It's the post-race show that comes on after the race, which makes it sound like, wait, when do the other post-race shows come on? Because I always remember they always do that with these other shows. They're like, oh, hey, the Geico post-race show comes on after the race. It's like, well, yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I expect it to happen in the middle of the race. You're going to review what hasn't happened yet. It's always fun. All right, here we go. What branch of the military did Bill France Jr. serve in? Was it the Army, the Coast Guard, the Navy, or the Air Force? Which branch of the military did Bill France Jr. serve in? Army, Coast Guard, Navy, or Air Force? We got our Veterans Day question here a little bit early. I'm seeing a lot of guesses for Navy. Space Force, yeah, not quite. Pre-taped call-in show, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's totally live. But there you go. I saw a few for Navy.
Navy.
Ah, there we go. You guys are too good.
You can keep going.
All right, we'll just do a couple more here, and then we'll wrap up here with do super chats before we wrap up. We'll do those after we wrap up here.
You can move to any highlight tile.
All right, we got a lot of the green ones again. We got let's get teams. We have them teams in a bit. Lots on practice coming back. Outstanding. We got 50-minute practices starting in New Hampshire. About time. As I said back in Atlanta, every team that was covering the back of the field had some kind of issue that could have been fixed in practice. So it's long overdue. So yes. All right. Next question here. Who won the 1996 All-Pro First Team Award for General Mechanic? Was it Eric Dunn, Dan Ford, Keith Sawyer, or Tex Powell? Do not look it up. This is a good, challenging question in the teams category. Look at that. 96 All-Pro First Team Award for General Mechanic. Eric Dunn, Dan Ford, Keith Sawyer, or Tex Powell? Save a couple for Dan, a couple for Tex. One for Keith Sawyer. Yeah, I think the practices also give the fans more bang for their buck, so they can actually, hear the cars going by and see some of the work that the teams are doing there. Practice is always interesting. It's always a flurry of activity because it runs out really quick, and the team's got to scramble to get everything adjusted. But you can't expect these teams, even with the simulators, to get everything right back at the shop. I know that most of the work is done there, and you can only do so much at the track. But, having that little bit of extra practice, why not? They're saying, oh, it's expensive. So, well, it's expensive not to. Because then you lose a whole lot of spots, and you're losing laps, and you're not contending. And then, you're losing money that way. So, may as well be being productive. Seeing guesses for Dan Ford. See a couple for Keith Sawyer. It's tricky. I saw a couple for Powell, but let's see. Oh, you guys got it. You guys are better than you think you are. Dan Ford. Indeed the correct answer.
You can move to any highlighted tile.
At this racetrack, there's not quite as much primary as...
Let's do a pits question. I think Tex Powell is a member of Benny Parsons Championship team. Good question, Andrew. And I think also he was the team owner that Chuck Bound drove for, the 97 car.
150, 300.
Alrighty, how many super speedway miles will right side tires last in Goodyear's estimation? Is it 90, 200, 150, or 300? How many super speed? Now, this is the late 90s, so keep in mind this would be a different answer than today, probably. How many super speedway miles will right side tires last in Goodyear's estimation? Is it 90 miles, 200 miles, 150 miles, or 300 miles with right side tires? Yeah, I know it's a toss-up. I've seen a lot for 90 and 150. We're kind of about 50-50 on that. Hard to tell where the wind is blowing on that one. All right. Maybe 90? 150? Let me think about how many laps. Let's go with 90.
150.
Oh, it was too hard. Too hard. Tires were softer until around 2001. They did have that different tire compound in 01 that we saw in the 500 Days episodes there that kind of focused on that. That was a bit more of a story. Well, tell you what, folks, that will do it for that portion of it here. I'm going to jump back into... Thank you for our trivia portion there. Hope you enjoyed that. Apologize, the lighting's a little different. Our lights went out here, so I got to recharge the batteries there for next time show. I don't know if we'll do one next week or not, but we'll figure that out. What I will do here, if you'd like to stick around, I'm going to do some super chats here before I wrap up. If you're good here on the show here, that's totally cool. I'll see you next time. We'll either do one next week for the off weekend, or we'll return for Iowa in a couple of weeks. But in the meantime, we'll do the super chats here. So again, thank you so much for the super chats here, folks. I'll start off with the most recent one here from Michael Jensen, 1817 for $5. Thank you very much. Just joined in. If mentioned, sorry, is this the best part-time season since Davey Allison in 1987? I've been watching since 1984, and this is amazing. I'd have to agree. It probably is. It probably is, you know, since the days of Davey Allison. I mean, it's, you know, even Van Gisbergen only won the one race there a couple of years ago. I'm trying to think of some other teams that would have been really good. I mean, you know, you got some other efforts where, you know, drivers changed teams or maybe drove part-time for somebody else and then got a full-time ride or something. Gosh, I mean... Yeah, I mean, in terms of getting 2 wins in the first season, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's a rarefied air for sure. I mean, I can't really even think of something back in, you know, this would be like No Fear Racing coming out in the mid 2000s. And if they won Sears Point and Daytona, which they almost did, they had very good runs in both races, or actually 06, rather, they were very good in those. So yeah, again, kudos on that, but a good question there, Michael. I think you're right. I think it would be the best since then. No, I did not mention that really earlier. I kind of talked more about the fact that he won in Buddy Arrington's number on Arrington's birthday, which adds to kind of the special element of that there at the same time. Bowser Jr., thank you for your super chat for $5 on here. Don't know if I've mentioned it on a stream yet, but F1 has been degrading in their broadcast like Fox. They routinely only focus on the top 6 cars. Well, that's disappointing to hear. I have not followed Formula One this year. I watched the season opener on Apple TV, and I don't really have an interest in another streaming app here at the moment. So I did not continue with that there after that. But it's too bad to hear that, especially in Formula One where the field's already so small. Seems like it'd be pretty easy to kind of talk about the other teams, and they got the live cameras like NASCAR has. Yeah, it's too bad. I have not seen that, but that's disappointing to hear, because I would figure at this point that, you know, people have something to say about pretty much all the drivers in the field, not just the first few. And I guess, is Mercedes still dominating? I know they were earlier, last I heard, but yeah, that'd be another one to look at there at the same time. But again, thank you for the super chat there as well. Best part-time was Kyle Busch in 2015. Well, okay, that's true. I guess that's true. Or Trevor Bayne winning another race in 2011. That's point. Keselowski and Phoenix Racing in '09. Yeah, still won one race that year. Yeah, these other good examples. Very, very good list here. But yeah, trying to think of 2 wins. Like, that would be a different one. Missed a Leclerc victory a couple weeks ago. Well, there you go. I'm glad there's a little bit of unpredictability. I mean, isn't Charles Leclerc and Ferrari like really struggling still, even with, I guess Lewis Hamilton's finally won in Ferrari, hasn't he? But yeah. Beast of Metal, I saw your other comment here on this for $10. Thank you again for your super chat. Maybe I shouldn't be so down. NASCAR is bringing back practice soon. That is something everyone who isn't pumping the Ponzi charter bubble wanted. Too bad the new Daytona pack gets no practice at all. Well, that's a point. That is a point. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's great that they're bringing back practice. I saw this was coming up during our trivia section here as well. It does need to come back. I mean, in the typical social media discussion, everybody's saying like, oh, well, if they bring back practice now, suddenly everybody's going to be able to win the race and all these other teams are going to be that much better. Well, it doesn't have to make that much of a difference. It just has to fix issues that, are just going to come up with just the car getting brought to the racetrack. You can prepare everything as best you can on the car in the shop. You unload the car, maybe something's unhooked right, or something isn't installed correctly or something, or maybe there's there's dirt on the rear view camera or something like that that's just going to hold you up. Practice is a great opportunity to clear that up, and just having 15, 20 minutes isn't enough. That goes by really, really fast. So doing a 15-minute practice, it's still not enough, but it's way better than what was there before. And I think that also, as hopefully the health of the sport improves and we get more teams in all 3 series, especially in the Cup Series, you're going to want to have that extra practice to prepare for qualifying. You don't want to just get back out there. I'm glad that we had the common sense change this year where the Cup Series doesn't just start with the qualifying for the Daytona 500, especially since that's like one of the most consequential qualifying sessions of the year. Not so much because, it's a super speedway race and all that, but also, you got the guys that are locked in on speed, that maybe are open teams, the prestige of starting on the front row. Maybe a super speedway race where things get mixed up, but that still means a lot. And for the open teams, that could determine whether or not, how many races they're even going to run that year. So that'd be another one. So yeah, I think that would be another one to look at. But again, yeah, thank you for the super chat on that, Beast of Metal, and definitely appreciate it there too. Beast of Metal also before this, I probably should be reading yours in order. Let me go back. I'll go back to your first one here. For $10. Again, thank you for this. Thank you for these super chats as well. On here, the first one it looks like was on this 2 hours ago. Hey everyone, it's been a minute since I've watched live. That's what happens at the intersection of networks and ad agencies demanding Sunday night races and a 6 a.m. call time for my job. I've had enough. Totally get it. Totally. Believe me, I'll tell you, it's been just as much of a slog here on this end, and I feel much more presence of mind. I have to kind of rewatch those old videos and be like, oh my God, I'm surprised I had anything to say at the time in those videos there. But yeah, I see the NASCAR's, trying something different. Yeah, Sunday night football's the thing, although it's not all year. In the summer is a bit different than the fall. I guess it could be certainly argued. Yeah, I mean, having these Sunday night races or having that many of them in a row and then a West Coast swing on top of it, I imagine it's been a real challenge for not just the drivers, but the viewers. I mean, really, the people in the stands who are dealing with the rain and viewers that have to go to work the next day. Same here. I work day shift too. That 1 week, what after the Atlanta race, I think I was off my kilter the entire week after it. I imagine people that had even longer commutes than I do were dealing with that too. So I'm perfectly happy to have a race. It could be in the morning and then have the rest of your afternoon clear, or have it be at this time here and have your evening open. That's much better. So I definitely agree on that. But again, yeah, thank you for your super chat on that. And I got your follow up to this one here. But hey, at least the first race I've watched a flag to as it happened since Chicagoland was good for physicists seeking data for aerodynamic studies. Well, that's very true. Very good point, Beast of Metal. And as I mentioned there earlier, and again, thank you for your super chat on that. It seems like it's something that they need to figure out. I mean, is Indianapolis going to be a track where you're going to have like 3 wide passes and stuff like that all the time? No, unless you're driving an Indy car. Whatever the IndyCar package is, I guess they got to take some inspiration from that in terms of having an actual slipstream. We've had something closer to that in the O'Reilly series, but in the Cup series, it's definitely lacking in that respect there. And I think these issues with this particular car have become more glaring at certain tracks. We saw this at Pocono last year. We saw this at Iowa last year. And we even saw this at the road courses last year. I think the high horsepower is the direction they need to go. I think it's definitely a first step since it has such lower downforce too. We've seen an improvement at races like Sears Point and Watkins Glen, and to an extent at Martinsville. We'll see what things look like at Richmond. But Wilkesboro, I think, was solid. I think at least seeing people weave through traffic was interesting. Hopefully we can have something like that at Richmond. I think that would be really exciting. So we'll find out what happens from there. But I think that's everyone on here. Make sure I didn't miss anybody here. Let's see. You got that one. That one's from there. That's here. You got the practice and Bowser and on that. Okay, good. I think I caught up on everybody. Excellent. Well, thank you everyone so much for your super chats, and thank you also for tuning in for the show tonight. That will do it for this week's episode of Behind the Wall. Our next show still up in the air. It's probably going to be, at the latest, it's going to be in Iowa in 2 weeks. We'll talk about the Cup Series and the O'Reilly Series action from there. Hopefully we see an improvement there with the lower downforce, high horsepower package. I hope it's significantly better than what we saw out of last year's race. That last year's Iowa race was probably one of the worst of the season in terms of competition. But hopefully things turn around there. In the meantime, the Twitter account is at LastCarOnBrock. The Patreon is patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock. And of course, the website is lastcar.info. And stay tuned this Saturday, August 1st. I'm planning on having the premiere of my next video, which is a Kyle Busch tribute video, and I'll be posting it in the Patreon, patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock for $5 and up members immediately after this show tonight. It'll be the next thing I click on here after a log off from this show. So if you're in that level, or if you want to join that level, you will have access to it through this week, and that will allow me to make some tweaks to it before Saturday if need be. So in the meantime, congratulations to Corey Heim on his tremendous victory, his second career victory on the late Buddy Arrington's birthday. And congratulations to other winners this weekend. And I'll see you all next time. Have a great week. And if I don't see you next week before Iowa, have a great off weekend as well. Thank you very much, folks.